The Power of Print conference took place at Stationers' Hall in London and was organised by hosts Two Sides UK. The seminar takes place every year and welcomes speakers who celebrate the power of print. This year it welcomes speakers from Canon, Royal Mail's Market Reach and Jaguar, among others, who highlighted the relationship between print and people and print and the digital age. Speaker Dave Burse argued that technology is not only aiding the slow demise of print, but also human intelligence. Burse explains that humans currently have the smallest brains of all our ancestors because we have retained less skills than our predecessors.
They did a study of black cab drivers because they do the knowledge. The knowledge is incredible. It takes about 4 years. Taxi drivers have to learn about 25,000 streets and all the landmarks, all the hotels, all the theatres, and it usually takes them about 12 attempts before they actually pass it. And these are people who are grown people, they're not kids, grown people who are putting huge amounts of information into their heads. So they did studies to find out what happens to people's brains when they do the knowledge. And the hippocampus, the back part of the hippocampus, which is very much to do with sort of spatial awareness, significantly grew. And we find that when people learn languages, parts of the language cortex on the left-hand side here grow as well. Now, it's incredible to show that as we learn stuff, our brains actually grow. But our brains are actually at the smallest they've been in 10,000 years. And maybe that's because we've been losing skills. And what I was talking about today was how the way that we are using technologies, we are outsourcing skills to devices rather than doing it in our heads. We're outsourcing our memories, we're outsourcing our computer power, like using calculator instead of actually doing mental arithmetic, and we're about to outsource our decisions. And that's just going to end up giving us weaker and weaker brains, and maybe in 100 years' time, the human brain will just be a walnut rattling about in a coconut shell. I absolutely love print. I've been working in print for 30 years. In the old days when everything was photographic and you had to send it off and wait to get things back again to get proofs. These days we just do it all electronic and it's much easier, more powerful. Print is amazing because the physical act of us reading something physical, we remember that stuff a lot more than if we see anything on a computer screen. So there's something that's called the Google effect, and it means that if you see something on a device, you're actually unlikely to memorize it because you think it's already stored. So if it's stored in that device, we don't need to store it up here. And it's all documented online, the studies that have been done into this. So to me, print, because it's physical, it's a beautiful thing that hangs around for years rather than websites that, and I create websites as well, rather than websites that people are on for a few minutes and then they click off and they've completely forgotten everything that they read while they were there.
Ed Gillespie, co-owner of Futera, based his speech at the conference on how the new does not always overtake the old. Examples include Polaroids and vinyls, which are making a reappearance after falling away. Sales may not be as high as they were at the product's peak, but sales are rising steadily.
So my talk today was about how the new doesn't entirely eat the old, looking at Polaroids, vinyl and cycling. And my work mainly focuses on the key challenges of sustainability and how business can navigate the challenge of sustainability and also prosper at the same time. So I use the example of businesses which have completely died, such as Kodak, because they failed to live a sort of sense of bigger than self-purpose, and they failed to disruptively innovate their own business model. And then I used the resurgence of things like Polaroid, which has now come back from the brink and is now doing very well under a new management and a new team of people who are reinvigorating the idea of the physical instant picture. And equally, I explained the kind of story around cycling, how cycling, is a 200-year-old technology, and yet is now about to tip in London to be having more cyclists during the morning rush hour than we do have cars. And finally, I talked about vinyl and vinyl records, and how vinyl again was written off, and we thought it was all about digital downloads, and then it's about streaming. But sure enough, we're seeing a resurgence, and vinyl album sales this year globally will probably tip over $1 billion again. So the main thrust of my argument was that saying, there are kind of stupid businesses which end up dying, and there are smart businesses which end up evolving. And some of them evolve exponentially, some of them go through cycles where they reinvigorate themselves by innovating. And essentially what I kind of suggest is that the future belongs to those businesses which are purposeful, meaningful, sustainable, connect in a human way with people, and tell the best stories.
Myers-Lamptey, Managing Director of the UK branch of Mullenlow Media Hub, was one of the liveliest speakers at the event. Myers-Lamptey explained that the whole world is being interrupted and is going through a digital transformation.
I attempted to take the audience on a bit of a journey of how print has gone from its good old days to its present day, where it's definitely been transformed by different powers around it. But I tried to talk about how it isn't just print that's getting transformed, it's the whole world is being transformed with digital interruption and transformation. And actually it's the businesses that don't adapt and realise this is happening are the ones that really get left behind. So I talked about how it was really important to kind of embrace the technological change that's happening, but use it in a best smart way with the skills of print, the things that print are really good at. So whether it's telling stories or editing information and providing really kind of trusted environments that we can really connect and have relationships with consumers on their terms without just interrupting them. So I talked about how this is a real strong asset of print. There's some real strong positives that the world needs print to carry on and pass on these skills, these much needed skills, into the new kind of digital emerging world.
Managing Director of Hosts Two Sides, Martin Eustace, gave an insight into Two Sides' current campaign surrounding paper. Many people believe that using paper is wrong for the environment due to deforestation. However, Two Sides is on a mission to rid the industry of this myth and explain that paper is one of the most sustainable products to print on.
Well, outside of this conference, our day job, if you like, is to promote the sustainability and attractiveness and power of print on paper. That's what we do. We do it through two campaigns. There's Two Sides, which is the environmental campaign, which reminds people that paper and print come from a renewable resource. And there's the Print Power campaign, which is all about the power of print to persuade and influence. We try and find out what consumers are thinking, and that's often surprising. And they do think that forests in Europe are shrinking, because they must be, because they see it on the news every day. But what they're looking at is deforestation in other parts of the world that have very often got nothing to do with the print and paper industry. So we do our research first, we find out what people are thinking, and then we go out with simple tools, adverts, little booklets, social media, to set out the true facts. So, we try to explore all the myths that there are and set out the facts. And that's where the word Two Sides comes from. It's meant to be seeing both sides of the argument. So sometimes not everything we do is good, and we say, right, that can be better. But in the main, print and paper is one of the most sustainable ways to communicate.
The event, which was sponsored by Canon, BPIF, Print Power and Print Monthly, left many with an optimistic feeling towards the future of their industry.